I think we just have to go downstairs now. Everybody is having breakfast. And where do you have breakfast? In the dining room, so that's where we're going. How do I get off this screen? Ah, here we go. I have to go down before I can go sideways. Come on, over we go.
Told Vera is true. And mind you, I take anything he says with a grain of salt. Then they will not be sending a boat until at least Monday, even if the storm clears.
Wise to remember Narracot's the odd man out here.
Yes, thanks to you, I believe, Blore.
At least nothing else has occurred.
I hope you are correct, Miss Claythorne. However, I feel compelled to draw your attention to this table's centerpiece.
Now 2 are broken. How odd.
Ah, Mr. Narracott, good morning. Since Mr. Marsden won't be joining us, there is an extra place for breakfast, although breakfast itself seems to be a trifle behind schedule.
I'm afraid there is no breakfast at present. Mrs. Rogers has not been able to carry on this morning.
What's the matter with the woman? I was promised fresh apple juice this morning.
I must tell you a sad piece of news. Mrs. Rogers died in her sleep.
Yet another stuttery cutscene. Hopefully when this is uploaded maybe I'll be able to do something in the editing process to make it less stuttery. It probably won't be perfect still, but hopefully it'll be better than how it was when we just watched it there. Anyway, let's talk to everybody.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
She was a very skittish creature. And she had a shock last night. It might have been heart failure.
Her heart certainly failed to beat. What caused it to fail is the question.
Did you hear anything in the night?
No, my sleep was quite restful.
Good day to you, Miss Claythorne.
See, look at them all. My sleep was quite restful. They were all sleeping fine. These people are strange. They're a strange bunch.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death, Judge?
I'm afraid it confirms my opinion that there is something very wrong on this island. It occurs to me that if these 2 deaths were not suicides or accidents, that Mr. Owen may very well be responsible. If so, he is almost certainly on this island somewhere.
I agree. I think we should find a way off this island immediately.
Did you hear anything in the night?
I confess I slept fitfully. Marsden's death, the storm, but I heard nothing. Possibly also due to the storm.
Understandable, Judge. Quite understandable.
Mr. Narracott, can your boat be repaired?
I doubt very seriously it can be repaired. Mr. Blore did a good job.
Steady on. I didn't know then how the land lay, did I?
So you say.
If you find a means of leaving the island or of signaling the mainland, I'm sure we would all be in your debt.
And I'm sure all of us would help in any way we could.
Hear, hear.
We're never going to leave the island. None of us are ever going to leave.
Wow, thanks Mr. Optimism there. I'm sure that made everybody feel better.
What were you hinting at concerning Marston's politics?
Only that he'd become mixed up with some foreigners. I think that's all I'd better say at present.
I am grateful for your assistance, Judge Wargrave.
We already know what Marston was mixed up with. He was a Nazi spy. We can get him to tell us later on, but to be honest, it's another one of those pointless things in the game. We'll do something, he'll tell us something we already know. So
what was the cause of death?
Impossible to say offhand.
There must be an autopsy.
I certainly couldn't give a certificate without one.
When did you find out?
Rogers roused me at first light. He'd gotten up to light the stove and see to the power generator before waking her. When she didn't respond, he got me.
Can you tell when she died?
Without an autopsy, not for certain, but it must have been some hours ago. The body was, quite cold.
Did you hear anything in the night?
No, although it appears I should have.
Good day to you, Doctor.
Now well, let's try Lombard.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
We know that she consumed something last night. Dr. Armstrong told us so.
I, Mr. Lombard?
You gave her a sedative.
A small dose of Trianol, nothing more.
Doctors have made mistakes before.
You're suggesting I accidentally gave Mrs. Rogers an overdose?
Accidentally or otherwise. One death may have been an accident or suicide, but two in the space of a few hours?
Simply outrageous, man of my standing.
Any more questions, Mr. Narracott?
Okay, did you hear anything in the night?
Did you hear anything in the night?
I'm a very light sleeper. In future, I hope everyone will bear that in mind. Yes, several times I heard something.
You didn't investigate?
With a judge, a detective, and an amateur sleuth in the house, you hardly need my poor skills in that line. I prefer to keep watch.
The hunter in his blind?
A good analogy, Judge.
Well, when we went into his bedroom, he didn't look like he was keeping watch. He was snoring, so much for being a light sleeper.
You said you recognized Owen's voice.
I've had time to think it over, and I'm sure I did. But I see no reason to share that information with you.
Thank you, Lombard.
No reason other than the fact we could, you know, all help each other out, but I guess not.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
Conscience.
What do you mean by that?
She was accused, together with her husband, of having deliberately murdered her former employer, an old lady. You all saw her last night. She broke down completely. The shock of her wickedness brought home to her was too much to bear. She literally died of fear.
Possibly, if there was cardiac weakness.
Call it, if you prefer, an act of God.
That is all, Miss Brent.
Nope, that's it. Let's try the general.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
I'm sure Mrs. Rogers wasn't to blame. A good, loyal woman.
Did you hear anything in the night?
I thought I heard a voice calling my name. My wife, she died several years ago. I expect it was a dream.
General, you said you thought you recognized Lombard.
Did I? Yes, I expect I did. But I fail to see what business it might be of yours.
Thank you, General. Stay well.
Yeah, you can get him to reveal some stuff to you like that, but I never got him to tell me what it was, how he thought he knew Lombard. I'm not quite sure how to do it. Not that it really matters, to be honest. These are all optional things. It doesn't really matter if you miss them.
You're a detective, Mr. Bloor. Any theories?
I appreciate you recognizing the fact there's a professional present. I'd like to know what she had to eat or drink last night before she collapsed.
Rogers assures me she had nothing whatsoever.
Of course he would say that. But see here. They've done a murder and gotten away with it. Now she's all hysterical, likely to give the show away. She's a danger to her husband, that's what she is.
Oh, I should hardly think a man would do that to his wife.
There we go. Let's try
You
this
said
one.
you knew something about the history of this island.
Most of the old stuff can be found in the library. Its more recent history is just as interesting, though. But I'm not inclined to divulge that just yet.
That'll do, Mr. Bloor.
Chapter 3. 8 little sailor boys traveling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7.
Rogers didn't let his wife's death get in the way of his custodial duties. I assume everyone has gone off on their own pursuits. I should do the same.
Let's have a look at the centerpiece again then. There we go.
8 little sailor boys. The plot thickens.
Every time someone dies, a little sailor boy gets his torso snapped off. Where to first? I think today we can finally go outside.